very much. Now, they told me I have about an hour and a half to speak. You guys are all set? Okay. Anyway, first of all, I want to thank the board of bionorthTX for this recognition of the work I've been doing for the last 12 years. You know, all of us, we work really hard at all the things we do, and it's nice when somebody recognizes that you've actually been making a difference in the way that you hoped to. So thank you for the recognition. So now I thought I would take a few minutes to tell you some of the things I've learned in the last 12 years. How many people in this room, how many of you have ever started a company in the life sciences area? Yeah, a bunch of you, right? And, you know, and I include in that definition medical devices, pharmaceuticals, healthcare IT. There are lots of ways that people get involved in the life sciences area. And the thing I know that those people know, and that the rest of you may not know, is how hard it is to start a company. It is really hard work. It is harder than anyone believes when they start the company. If anybody knew how hard it was to do, I don't know if they'd do it. So I know it's harder than they believe when they started. And it is way harder than anybody who has never done it believes it would be. So what's so hard about it anyway? I think some people think they know what it takes to start a company because they're so good at what, or have been so good at what they've done in a big company. So they think that they know what it takes to start the company because they've launched a product in a big company or they've done something big. But the difference is that the people who have done it in a big company, see, they had the corporate attorneys to handle the legal work and to back them up with all the legal stuff that they needed to know. They had the corporate finance department to finance what they were doing, so they didn't have to go out and raise all that money themselves. You know, or they had their marketing group or their manufacturing group to do a lot of the work. So, entrepreneurs have to figure all that stuff out on their own, and without the money or the clout to do it with, all while they have no income. So it's really hard. So some people think that they'll have no problem starting a company because they got their MBA and they learned all this stuff at school. I think I would kind of put myself in that category as where I thought I was when I started the company with my dad and my brother. But starting a business and growing it are really two different things. And generally speaking, as in business school, you're learning how to grow a company. You're not really learning how to start it. You know, I've over the years had lots of people come to see me and say, well, I want to help all your startup companies because I really know how to do this thing. And their evidence for how they knew how to do this thing was that they were at another company and they took it from $1 million in sales to $10 million in sales. So they really know how to grow that company. And I tell them, no, I want to meet the person that got the first $1 million. Those are the people that did the really hard work of starting the company. Some people think they'll have no problem because they have the best technology or they have the best product ever. And therefore, it's going to be easy. You know, all I have to do is let the world know that I got this thing and I'll have a successful business. You know, and that is one of the things you need, right? You kind of need all of this, but it's a lot harder. One of the things I've discovered over the years, I've had lots of clients who had great products, great technologies, and they spent a lot of money to get their website up and running, to let the world know they had those things. And what happens the next day is the sound of crickets. It's not enough to tell the world you've got what you've got. You need to convince them to actually buy it. And I also had somebody tell me, even along those same lines, that it's okay, they know, they have talked to so many people and everybody wants this. So they know that as soon as they make it available, all those people are going to buy it. And they know lots of those people. Here's the thing that you need to know though, is that all those people you know that are going to buy it, they're going to buy it in the first month. But you still have to have dollars coming in the second month. And so you have to be able to sell to people who've never heard of you or never heard of what you're selling. And then there's the whole matter of raising capital. You know, especially in the life sciences world. You have to raise capital. You can bootstrap some companies. You know, I essentially bootstrapped mine for the first 10 years. But most companies, we were a contract manufacturer, most companies in the life sciences are going to have to raise money, and that's hard. The other thing is you have to put together the right team. There's so much work to do in the early days of a startup. You have to put together that right team. And most people start out by hiring the people they already know. That works for a little while. It doesn't work for very long because those may or may not be the people that you need to be successful for the long run. And so you really have to, as they say, I've heard this said, this is not my quote, but you kind of have to hire slowly and fire quickly until you get that right team together. And when you do that, it's really hard as an entrepreneur because you really, really care about those people who come to work for you. And sometimes you have to fire them. And sometimes they're happy about that. Actually, they're never happy about it. But some of the people that I fired at my company are still my best friends. Some of them are not. And you find out about that many years later, actually. And then, of course, I forgot, so what's special for this group, of course, when you're talking about the life sciences, is the whole regulatory arena. You just got to add that layered on top of everything else that every entrepreneur has to do. We also have to worry about the regulatory arena. You have to do it right. You have to hire the right consultants and the right people to help you, because otherwise you may cut your own legs off before you even get started. You've got to do that right. So every single step of starting a company has both short-term consequences, either you're going to have to pay some money or give some equity. It has short-term consequences, and it also has long-term consequences. You've got to think of the short-term and the long-term, every single little thing that you do. It's really hard work. So, having convinced you that it's really hard work, what have I learned that will help those companies do that? And for the rest of you who haven't started a company or who aren't planning to start a company, how do you get involved and help those companies get started? Because they're important for the lifeblood of our life science community. So, you know, why would anybody even do this? Because it is so fraught with peril, all these long and short-term decisions, right? How does anybody make it through the obstacle course of those early days? So I've spent the last 12 years, since I left my company, trying to help other people do it. And I actually think I've learned a lot in those 12 years of helping all these other companies get where they're going. I wish there had been a Tech Fort Worth or somebody else that I could have relied on in the early days of mine. And I'm not making a pitch for Tech Fort Worth because I don't work there anymore. So I'm not getting paid anything to say that. But they will continue to be a great resource for startups. So my biggest advice to anybody who is starting a company is to find others who have been there and listen to them. And the thing is, I think it's human nature for most of us that what we think we ought to do is look for people who've been really successful in their companies and ask them, how did you do that? You know, or ask them specific questions about how they did something that got them where they're going. However, I think your better answer is to go to one of those people and ask them, what did you do that you wish you had not done? Because I don't care who they are, Everybody who has a successful company has some things they wished they had not done or wished they had done differently. You know, or people who started a company, you know they started a company and you know they no longer have that company, or you know they lost that company somehow. Ask them, how did that happen? What you want to do is learn from other people's mistakes. I think that's actually more valuable than learning from people's successes. Because even those with success, they had to overcome a lot. I know, I certainly did. All those awards, everything I got, I didn't do everything right, trust me. Lots of things I wish I had done differently, or that I would do, if I had a do-over, I would do it a different way. The other thing is that with entrepreneurs in my view are real heroes because they're magicians really, because what they do is they take all the resources that are out there and available to everybody, but somehow they create something of value out of nothing. And there are a lot of resources that are out there and available to entrepreneurs. And many of you in this audience are resources for those people. You know, you're either service providers that help them get where they're going, or you are big companies that might have resources that are available to younger companies, or you work with a university. There are lots of things, lots of resources that are out there. bionorthTX is here to help connect all those resources. We heard Victor Fishman talking a little earlier today about him being a connector. There are organizations like Tech Fort Worth and others in the region that are there to help connect people. The key is to use all those resources. And if you are a resource provider, to be very involved in those. You know, seek out board positions, seek out ways like this, get more involved and bring your friends. There's lots of empty seats in here. Everybody needs to bring their friends next time. So the other thing that I think that entrepreneurs can do is to get to know other entrepreneurs. This is one of the things that I've found that is the most valuable. Lots of entrepreneurs I've worked with have learned a lot because I say, well, you know, you're working on this part of your company. They may be working on completely different types of products, but they're working on the same thing, either like raising money or figuring out how to get health insurance for their employees or whatever. But you can, if you get together with other entrepreneurs, you can learn from them. What are you doing? And what attorneys are you using? What insurance agents do you use? So seek out other entrepreneurs. One of the things I see people doing wrong a lot is they think they ought to spend their time going to networking events. Any of you go to networking events? Yeah, I know you do because you're part of bionorthTX, right? So, yeah, and so networking events are great. They're great if you're not just there to have a drink and smile at people, but if you're there to learn from the other people who are there. That's what's important. So yes, go to networking events, but only if you're planning to work and get to know those people and ask them the hard questions. And the other thing is about the raising capital. That's something that everybody in this room can get involved in. You know, all those startup companies, they can't do anything unless they have the money to pay the service providers they need, or to buy the materials that they need. And how do they get that capital? Well, sometimes there is lots of non-dilutive funding around, meaning they don't need to give up equity to get that money. And I don't know if anybody's mentioned it so far this morning, but one of the biggest ways is coming up at the end of October, October 30th, in Dallas, is the annual Health and Human Services National SBIR Conference. That's a very big deal. It's never been in Dallas before, and it's a way for people to meet the federal government agency managers that are helping, that have money for small businesses. I think everybody in this room ought to go to that conference. You can look it up online at sbir.gov. But it's a very big deal that it's coming to Dallas. It's never been in Dallas before. And when you do need to get equity, there are not only, we have health wildcatters for very early stage companies over in Dallas. We've got, was mentioned before, the North Texas Angel Network and the Cowtown Angels Network. Companies can apply to those angel networks for funding, equity funding. But those of you who aren't entrepreneurs, if you are what's called an accredited investor by the SEC, if you've ever thought about investing in one of these companies, you want to join one of these networks and invest in these companies. It's a way to be involved in the excitement of starting these companies without being the one with everything on the line, right? So, and then one of my really key pieces of advice is to enjoy the journey. Being an entrepreneur is hard work, and it is a roller coaster. And so the really important thing is to enjoy the journey, meaning celebrate even the littlest of wins. Always celebrate. So, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to me tell you some of the things that I learned over the last 12 years. It's been an incredible journey for me, and I'm not going anywhere. I just haven't figured out exactly what I'm going to do yet in the future, other than continuing to coach the Tech Fort Worth clients on a contract basis. Probably I'll join Cowtown Angels so that I follow my own advice. But other than that, time will tell, but I'm sure you'll still see me around. So thank you for the recognition. I got to figure out where to put that pretty toe free next. Thank you.